Okay, hello, fellow contemplatives and or people interested in the spiritual life. Welcome back to a series investigating the life and thoughts of Bernadette Roberts. Now we have to leave behind her autobiography called Contemplative because it ends when she was 17 and jump into this book which she wrote after the experience of no self. This is called The Path to No Self. She wrote it to distinguish between the no self experience and the no ego experience. And I forgot to make videos yesterday, Saturday, because I adopted a couple dogs. I think I'll show them to you if you want. It's a beautiful view of Panhacho and Lake Atitlan. Anyway, so we left off, she entered the Carmelite monastery and she's 17. And so this video will be continuing the biographical theme of these talks, and that theme will end with this little talk. And then next week, God willing, if I remember, I'll do a talk just on the experience of the unitive state. And then the next week I'll do a talk just on the no self. And so you'll see that they're very different. And then we'll see if I can get into a little theology. I don't know. I've never really tried this before. We'll see what happens. Okay, so you probably heard of the dark night of the soul. That is a term or phrase almost universally misunderstood. There are actually 4 nights: the active night of the senses, the passive night of the senses, the active night of the spirit, and the passive night of the spirit. And this experience of no self is what culminates the passive night of the spirit. In the passive night of the spirit, however, this ego center falls away, and with it, because of its attachment to God, goes the whole experience of God. Thus we seem to be without God. Our first concern is to find God, for we know that only in God will we ever find our true self. The passive night of the spirit, the falling away of the ego center, is the dire experience of emptiness and void in ourselves, an absence of God and our deepest self that leaves us in utter darkness, feeling as if the center of our being has suddenly fallen out. So here she explains that experience, what that was like for her. Like I said, she was in the monastery. She was reading probably Blessed Elizabeth of the Trinity in the garden during time that Carmelites set aside for reading and prayer every day. I'll not prayer, specifically for reading and study. I'll get into the daily Carmelite schedule in a bit. Since only the Creator knows the true nature and destiny of his creature, only he knows the way forward. For in this respect, man does not know himself, and therefore does not know his proper direction. Thus, the man falling through space is in good hands. Though he does not know it, in the end, he will not so much as stub a toe. For myself, the entrance into the night of the spirit was just such a merciless milestone, a thrust beyond personal security. It happened as follows. I had been reading in the garden when I felt an invisible film or thin veil come down over my head and shroud my mind. Instantly I knew something had happened, but no idea came to mind, nor was there any other response. Swiftly and decisively, all had been done in silence. Yet, however simple and innocent its quiet descent, this act was in effect terrible and awful. The Almighty had simply lowered the boom. The first thing I noticed was that I could no longer see the words on the page. Suddenly they had become characters without meaning. It was several days before I could read again, and then it was totally without meaning. For years afterward, I could only derive meaning when and where God permitted some understanding to break through. These breakthroughs would shed light on the mystery of God's ways in my soul, in creation, or in his great plan for man. Because the contemplative state is always changing, this special light is also changing, always either leading the way or keeping pace, I do not know which. Apart from these practical knowledge, apart from the practical knowledge necessary for daily living, horse sense, my mind was plunged into darkness, wherein the only way of knowing was by this special light. I had to trust it implicitly because there was no other way of seeing. So this is a major change in her consciousness, and it took her a while to adjust to this. Although the mind is now left in a painful, empty void, this symptom is actually the lesser of two that mark this phase of the dark night. If it is dark and empty above, in the mind, so too it is dark and empty below, in our interior. After the descent of the veil, I looked inward to encounter not the usual obscure presence of God, but a gaping black hole where he had been. And on seeing this, there arose from this center a pain so terrible, so enormous, that I wondered how it could be contained. It was the feeling of being cauterized, branded by God in the depths of my being. Depths I never knew I had till then. The pain was beyond control, verging on the limits of human endurance, with no escape or cooperation possible. In a word, the pain was all. So she's experiencing here the pain of the loss of God. For the next 9 months, this pain came and went as it pleased, in daily bouts, several times a day. My understanding was that God had some merciless work to do here, and would not relent until his mysterious job was done. In time, I toughened enough to be able to take the pain with a modicum of stillness, without buckling interiorly, that is, and was therefore able to watch this burning out process more objectively. So she was afraid to look within because of this pain. And one day, she decided to look within to the depths, and she tells the story that she saw something that could be compared to, like, if you see a ship on the horizon and it's very far away, and so you take up your telescope and you look through to get a closer view of the ship. And as soon as you look through, what do you see but the eye of the captain of the ship looking directly at you? And she was startled and shocked by this, and she realized at that point that that was God looking at her, and that the eye with which she looked at God was the same eye with which God looked at her. As it happened, I went through the dark night alone and at an early age, with no previous knowledge or instruction regarding either the contemplative life or its various stages. Yet for this reason I had the advantage of coming through with no preconceived expectations, theories, or ideas regarding the true nature of the night, or what was really going on here. Having gone through previous states of grueling aridity, I took the night in much the same vein, as a test of endurance, a trial of love, a period of toughening up. And as we said, it took 9 months for her to fully acclimate to this dark night of the spirit, passive night of the spirit. So now she's 18. At this time in my contemplative life, I was 18 and in a convent. A novice mistress had just been appointed who was new to the office and new to me. One day she asked about my prayer, so I told her. I do nothing, I just